And I really like give that to my parents. My parents had like an unbelievable CD collection, especially my dad. Sadly,
Okay.
CDs and not vinyl because they like switched all of them over in the late 90s.
Awesome. So you're currently at Yale, obviously. But where were you born and raised?
So I was born in London, which is strange, but I moved to California when I was pretty young. So I was only in the UK for like first 3 and a bit years of my life.
Okay. And where in California?
To LA.
Okay.
So I would say like born in London, but like very much primarily raised in LA.
In LA. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm from San Diego. So
cool.
you were in LA until you went to college?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I was there for 16 years, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it like? What part of LA did you grow up?
Sorry, I just lost you for 1 second.
I said, where in LA did you grow up? What part?
Oh, I grew up like in like Santa Monica area.
Wow. Okay. Well, it must be cool growing up there. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was cool. I think LA is a weird place to grow up. Mostly just for like geographical reasons. Is like you don't have that like sense of community really because like the city is actually just so big and so sprawling. But I really liked it. I think like there was such an emphasis on creativity across the board living in LA. And like all of my friends were so sort of like entrenched in like that sort of culture and like going to concerts and like listening to tons of music, being really into movies. And like that was very much, I don't know, I loved that about growing up in LA. I think like creativity was really fostered, whereas I have so many friends from like other parts of the country and they're like, oh, my parents would hate if I like wanted to do anything creative.
Right.
Also, there's something crazy going on over there with people talking. I don't know if you can hear that.
It's all right. I can hear you better.
But
so
yeah. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, I really, that is crazy.
Some protest happening. Yeah, no big deal.
It's just, I think someone's actually acting is what's going on. Like I think someone's practicing like a scene or something. Okay, whatever. This is like so typical of this university. But yeah, no, I would say like I really enjoyed growing up in LA for those reasons, in the sense like when I started doing music, it didn't feel like I was doing something, so out of the ordinary.
Sure.
And I also always felt like I could really like deeply talk to my peers about the arts in like a serious way, rather than like when I came to Yale, there's so many people who know so much more than I do in so many other areas, but like would have no idea about like, like have like never seen a contemporary movie, for example.
Right. Sure.
So it's which I also think is so cool. And I think that's something that's been really, really compelling about being here. But yeah, I would say I liked growing up in LA. I wish it was like smaller.
It's big. It's big in a fast town, right?
Yeah, and like less driving. Especially when I started recording music in LA, it was like me driving from Santa Monica to Burbank like every day and back every day. So I'd be in the car for 4 hours a day every single day. So that
like 20 miles.
I like didn't love that. I like wasn't super crazy about that, but otherwise, it was a really cool place to grow up in.
Did you were your family or anyone else in your family musical? Like, how did you get into music originally?
The only person in my family who was musical is my mom's mother. Was like unbelievable at piano, like had this like amazing ear and could hear any song and like play it beautifully and perfectly, and I like envied that so much about her. But no one else in my family sings, writes music, plays music really at all. I think the biggest reason though was, despite that, I grew up listening to like, can I curse on this podcast?
Yeah, of course. Okay. You say whatever you want.
I grew up listening to just like an absolute fuck ton of music.
Okay.
And I really like give that to my parents. My parents had like an unbelievable CD collection, especially my dad. Sadly, CDs and not vinyl because they like switched all of them over in the late 90s. But yeah, just like they had a few like huge cabinets in our house that were just like CDs, full of tens of thousands of CDs, and there was just always music on, and it was it was such like a, the breadth of music that was played in my house was unbelievable.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful for that. And my dad's from Long Island, like a little top town in Long Island, and so there's a lot of like Springsteen and like
Sure.
Billy Joel and stuff like that. But then he also was playing a lot of like Public Enemy and
Wow.
Tribe and like Lauryn Hill and like and Motown music and reggae, and like there was such an unbelievable like amount of music played in my house. So I would say that like, I don't know, first and foremost, I'm like a fan of music more than I am a musician 100% of the time, just because like there's not, I don't know, there's nothing more important to me in life, in the world, like nothing I love more than music and listening to music. So I think that really sparked like the sort of
The interest.
immediate interest in like the
Sure.
beginning of my life.
What was the
in terms
first
of music.
instrument you learned?
I learned piano because my parents forced me to learn piano.
Okay, so they wanted you to learn an instrument. They
Yeah.
Okay, kind of pushed you
They
towards
both
that.
were like people whose Jewish mothers were like, you must learn an instrument, and they both
Okay.
and they like both quit. So they were like, you will learn an instrument, and I resented them so much for it for so long. And then when I turned like 11 or 12, I was like, screw this, I'm gonna learn how to play guitar. It's so much cooler. Piano sucks, like it's so boring. I hate classical music. I was still, and my parents were like, if you want to learn guitar, you also still have to learn piano, because like you need
They
to
kept you on piano.
Oh yeah, they were like, you have to stay doing piano. But then I started learning guitar, and then my bat mitzvah happened. It was too much. I couldn't do
What was too much? The piano?
Piano and guitar and learning Hebrew was too much.
It was too much. So what did you get rid of? The
So
guitar?
I got rid of the guitar. And yeah, so I kept playing piano. And then I started to really, really love it once I realized that I could write songs on piano that were mine. Rather than playing classical music. And now I play guitar again. So
yeah, I've seen. I was gonna say on your Instagram, you're playing guitar quite a bit.
Yeah, I love guitar. I absolutely love it so much. But that's been a pretty recent development.
Okay, so you started writing songs on piano around 15?
I started writing songs on piano and guitar when I was still doing that, when I was like 9.
Oh wow.
Eight or 9. They were really crap songs for sure. I went to like a sort of hippie type school, and they had like a little like tiny little computer lab where with like a microphone. So I would go in there and like record my stupid little songs when I was like actually 10 years old.
Do you have any of that still?
Oh yeah, I definitely have some
awesome.
of them. They're crazy, and my voice was super high, and like all of them were the same. It was me singing. I would play guitar. I'm so unbelievably bad at guitar that it sounds like nothing at all. And so it was like me singing, playing guitar, and then I would use like those shakers that look like fruit. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah, like the
and I'd do that into the mic, like the little apple shakers or like the pear shakers or whatever. And that was like all of the songs. And then I started learning how to use GarageBand, and then Ableton, and then learning how to use Logic. Now. So so when I was younger, I was making a lot of songs like on GarageBand too, which I loved. Like that was so awesome. And
were you showing people the songs, or they kind of keeping them to yourself?
I was like, well, at the time I'm like actually 12 years old.
Right.
So I'm like burning them onto CDs and like writing my name on the CDs with, drawing all over the CDs and like giving it to my parents. Like that was what was going on.
Okay.
Or like giving it to my brother. But then, yeah, a little bit after that, I started actually, by the time I was like 15, started actually, writing songs that I think were real rather than like tiny little 8-year-old Lila songs. And yeah, writing songs mostly on Ableton that were just like really simple chord progressions with really simple sort of like MIDI drums. Very much, I don't know, it's just so crazy because at the time I was like, this is so basic, and now so much of like, what like bedroom pop came with in terms of like that being like an era of music was just that.
Right. A lot of big records coming out that way.
Yeah,
right?
which was really crazy. But yeah, I started making music like that, and like actually trying to put together like a collection of songs that I've made,
Mhm.
which sort of sparked like those I actually did start sharing around. And then yeah, the rest is
Well,
sort of
yeah, what
history.
was like the first bit of success you had from doing that?
I don't know, there was like a really random moment where someone like very, very coincidentally, someone I didn't know very coincidentally heard one of the songs. Like super randomly. It was like someone my parents knew was like playing it at their house, and this woman was also there. It was like one of these really like nutty things, and she was very like involved in music, and introduced me to, like people who worked at a publishing company, who then were like, we like your little stupid songs, and if you want, like we'll send them around to our sort of like stable of producers here, and if anyone likes them, you can work here for free, and if no one likes them, have a nice life. And
Wow. How old are you when this was going on?
this was like my freshman year of high school, so
Okay. Like
i'm like
14.
i'm like 15.
Yeah.
Yeah,
14. Okay.
15, I think.
Uh-huh.
um yeah, I was still really young, like super super young. And a few people ended up reaching out, like a few producers ended up reaching out to me because of that. And the
Wow.
next thing I know, I'm like in high school, like I'm my first year of high school, and like doing sessions all the time, but really with no purpose, really just like for, the purpose of learning.
Hmm.
And because like I was given this opportunity that I felt like I couldn't really pass up. And then yeah, I ended up making like a small EP with one of those guys, and through that was introduced to like, you know other producers, and like
Hmm.
making other songs that were, I don't know, I think like the more songs you make, obviously the better the songs become.
Hmm.
um so it just sort of kept happening like that, and then I just kept being in more sessions with different people and new people and the same people, and just making more and more and more music, most of which will never see the light of day, of course. um but yeah, it was a really, I think like that, going back to your first question about, LA too, like there's also just such, proximity to like people who are actually making music as a career. So
Right.
that
You're
was really
close to
cool.
people, right? You
Yeah,
have more access to songwriters and studios and than if you
exactly.
lived somewhere else in the country.
For sure, for sure.
What was the first song that you had that kind of started to take a life of its own, like kind of take off for you?
Yeah, I mean, the first song I ever released, it's called Faded
Mhm.
slash 2 a.m. I released it in 2018, I think. I might be wrong. I
I
think
mean,
I'm
that
right.
song is
2018.
so many
2018.
streams.
Yeah, and I remember that song coming out, and it was really nuts. Like I was in class, it was my senior year of high school at this point.
Uh-huh.
I was in class with like my AirPods in, with my hair over the AirPods,
So nobody could see.
so nobody could see, and like listening to my song being premiered on Zane Lowe's Apple radio show,
Wow.
which was like so nuts. And I'd only found out about it like 2 days before, that he like really really liked the song and
And
wanted to
how did
play
he
it.
find
And
the song?
by that point I had signed with a manager who
Okay.
I'd met through sort of like making a bunch of these songs.
Okay.
And yeah, so we released the song, and it totally took on a life of its own, which is
Hmm.
really really wild. Yeah, for sure that was the first time when
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, people are listening to this. And I remember showing one of my friends like at school at lunch that day, because you can like watch the streams tick up on
Hmm.
Spotify, and there was like, it's just so many more streams than I ever could have imagined in like such a short period of time. And that was the first song I'd ever put out. So yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, validated what you've been doing. Obviously,
Yeah,
your career path, your choice.
yeah, for
And
sure.
wow, what were your friends saying? Like, oh my gosh, like
Well,
this is crazy. Like, is this
so here's
real?
the craziest part. I really like didn't tell anyone over the course of my high school career that I made music, like at all.
Oh, you
It
just
was
kept it
like
to
I
yourself?
just kept to myself. There's like too much competitiveness in you know, in a space like that in which like so many people are also trying to like do
Yeah. And
music
what are they
or
gonna do? They're gonna downplay what you're doing,
I don't know.
probably. If you're
It
like,
wasn't even really about that. I was just like this is for me, and
okay,
you know, it's not something that like I talked about a lot. Also, I was really like I'm so not like this anymore, but in high school I was like a super type A like, student.
okay.
So I was also like super focused on trying to, you know, do well in school and like get
Well,
into college,
obviously you're at Yale.
apply to college, apply to college. And so I just like I was really focused on that during high school for sure. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, so I think the biggest thing that happened at that point was everyone in my high school was like, what the fuck?
Right.
Like, in what world do you like do this? And why is like, yeah, why do you have like these streaming numbers? How did this happen?
Uh-huh.
We didn't know any of this about you. So that was really, really funny.
That's
Um,
cool.
and it's been so different coming to Yale because everyone, you know, knew that about me coming in.
Oh yeah, they knew that you had those numbers when you went to Yale.
For sure, for sure.
Oh, okay.
So it's been a really like different experience in the sense that like, yeah, like I've released two songs in the
Uh-huh.
past few months, like since I've been here, and like it's been so insane to like walk around campus and people be like, Lila, like we love your song, we love 2023, we love Crystal Ball, like
Wow.
people I don't
Yeah.
know, and people I do. So that's been really awesome. Such a supportive community here too. It's nuts.
Super cool. What did you or what are you going to college for? Music?
No.
You're like, nah.
No, I would love to. I'm certainly like taking music classes here.
Mm-hmm.
But the music major here is very like classical based, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. In terms of voice as well. And I can't sing opera for the life of me. So I'm currently studying English, but
Oh, I mean that works, right?
quasi up in the air. Yeah, yeah. I'm honestly more focused here on like improving my songwriting as much as I can. Um, and you know, taking music theory classes and doing all of that too,
Sure.
just to try to like improve those muscles. But yeah, I'm super super focused on like how do I become the best writer that I can, and I absolutely love to write. So that's the focus right now.
That's awesome. That is this
Yeah.
your first year at Yale?
This is my second year, so
Oh, second year.
I took a year off after high school just to make music to work on like a full length project,
Mm-hmm.
and then came so that was crazy because I also did like half of that was like pre-COVID as well, and
Okay,
then
so you
half of that
graduated before COVID
yeah,
happened.
I graduated
Okay.
in spring of 2019. So
Okay.
I graduated before COVID happened, and then came to Yale last fall, so a year and a half ago, and did the entirety of last year online. But I
Wow.
did the first half of my first year on campus but online.
Okay.
So I was living here but doing all my class online, and then I did the second half completely online, not at Yale. And now I'm here, and all my classes are in person, and so great. So
That's amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. I mean, what was it like having your first year of college be not a real, probably a college
It
experience?
was crazy. I will say that I think like the way that Yale is set up in terms of
Uh-huh.
like you have like the how sort of like houses in which you live,
Mm-hmm.
makes it really like pretty easy to meet people. Um, and so I certainly like was in a really lucky position in which I didn't feel alienated from my peers
That's good.
because of COVID, but certainly like my class experience was super different than it
Mm-hmm.
would be in person. Some of that was good. Like I have a math requirement here. I'm horrible at math. Like it allowed me to, you know,
Study a bit
like
harder.
yeah, like it allowed me to do better in like those classes, but certainly in classes where you know that are like seminar style and there are 9 people in them. I was in a music class last year that was 3 people. Like those classes on Zoom are certainly like more, it's way more challenging to stay engaged
Oh, I bet.
than in a classroom.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, when you had those huge streaming numbers, obviously right away with Faded 2 a.m., were labels and people reaching out to you, I would imagine quite a bit, quite often.
Yeah, that was
How
so
did
crazy
you,
as well.
yeah, how did you deal with that?
I was sort of just like, I don't know. I think at the time I was just like, this is my first song. Like, and I put out myself, and like,
Uh-huh.
why would I want anyone taking, ownership over this if it's like doing fine by itself.
Right.
But certainly it was really, really cool to like receive that feedback from like so many labels and people like that. I remember just being like, this is so nuts. That was so crazy to me. And yeah, I don't know, that was really, I was so like shocked by that. I was just like, why does anyone care about this? But I do think the biggest element of that, like, to me, was just that I had to keep putting out more music. And I had to keep making more music, and like I had no choice in that.
Did you worry about this next record that you put out not living up to the first one, or was that not even a thought?
Not really. I was really excited about it, which is awesome. I was like so enchanted by like the whole thing. Probably in a little bit of a different way than I am now, just because it's been a few years since then. But I think the biggest takeaway from it was, one, I need to take a year off before I go to school. And two, I just need to like keep myself in the studio as much as I possibly can, and keep writing as much as I can. Yeah, and really like actually take some time to think about what I was writing, as well as just writing it.
And so you've put out 2023 and Crystal Ball. Are they going to be on your record coming out?
I don't know if I'm like allowed to say that, but yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after Faded came out, I ended up putting out another single and then a small EP. And then released like 2 one-off singles after that. And then and then COVID happened. And then, yeah, so the first like 2 songs.
How did that? Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of momentum going, and then COVID happens. Did you have like big plans to play a bunch of live shows, or?
I did. I will say that when COVID happened, I was like in really intensive like studio mode.
Okay.
In a crazy way, because I graduated high school and I was like, I hate to say this too, but I was just so fed up with so much of the music that I had released and that I had made. I felt like I had really like changed a lot as a person. My interests had changed, my musical interests had changed, which I think is only natural when you start putting up music when you're 17.
Of course, yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like almost 20, and that is such like I don't know. I think the difference between like being like 16 and being 19, difference between being 17 and 20 is absolutely massive.
Oh yeah.
In terms of just like personal growth. So I was in such a different spot when I got out of high school and when I started making this new music than I was, even because when I wrote Faded, I was 16, even if it took so long to put it out. So I don't know. I really like set my mind to making a body of work that I really, really love, like very deeply love, and like I could listen to without critique, and that I could feel like uninhibited about. And yeah, so when COVID happened, I had been basically in the studio for every single day since July or August or something, and it's now March. And I was writing a lot, mostly in LA, but a bit in New York, and a bit in a town called Bath outside of London. So yeah, I'd really like been just in a very intensive mode. And then COVID happened and I was like, okay, I'm not going to listen to any of this music for a little bit. Like
you just put it away.
I was like, I have so much flexibility right now. This is such a great opportunity for me to like really reflect on what I've made, and like what an insane like opportunity that is. It's something you like never get when you're making music, because you never like get time to be like, okay, I'm gonna like stop and actually really, really think about it. And I did for a little bit, and then I came back to it and I was like, oh my god, there is so much that needs to be changed. And
really, so when you came back to the songs, you had a totally different perspective on
it. Different perspective. I also think that I started learning how to play guitar again during quarantine, which so many people did. But I was like spending 100% of my days learning how to play guitar, and writing new songs, new material, and listening to like much different music than I was listening to, in like the prior months. So I think like all of that really sort of shifted my perspective, and I thought a lot more about like, I don't know, I thought a lot more deeply about like what kinds of instruments do I want to be on this, like how do I incorporate this like sort of humanness that I feel like is coming from these new songs I'm writing on guitar, into like a sort of intrinsically pop record. So yeah, it was a really, I mean, yeah, it was definitely, obviously quarantine was challenging. I was in a lucky spot to be able to like be with my family, and be in like nice weather and the whole thing. But yeah, it really, really changed my perspective on the music, and I think has changed it permanently too.
Did you the songs that you had that you were coming back to, like hearing them again and getting all these new ideas? Did you just go back to the studio and start fresh?
No, because it was still locked down. So
Oh,
most of that ended up happening remotely. So I ended up re-recording a lot of it in my room, which was I really, really, really enjoyed that. I'd never like tracked my own vocals properly before since I was a kid. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna like learn how to really, really do this, like learn how to comp, do like 50 takes of my song, and then go through every 50 take and like choose the best parts of each take and do the whole
right.
thing.
Okay.
And like learning how to be objective with like my own voice and my vocals. And then ended up doing a lot of it remotely too, like just Zoom calls, emails, texts, like, and which was cool in a way because it allowed us to like really track the progress of the songs. But also some of the like, some of the songs we have whatever 35, 40 versions of, but
Wow.
at the end,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
just start like tweaking such small things. But I do think that I had a lot of clarity about what I like, the changes that I wanted to make to the songs, both lyrically, sonically, vocally, whatever. I had a huge amount of clarity going in. So I think it wasn't super, super difficult to be like, okay, this is exactly what I need to be changed, or like, this is exactly what I want to do. And I was really, lucky to work with some like fantastic collaborators on it too, who like really understood what I meant by all of those things. And it still did end up taking a lot of time. Like, I can't lie, like it ended up being another whatever year, eight
Right. Right.
months of
So,
that. But
so all the
yeah,
vocals on these songs that are coming out now are all recorded by you in your room?
not all of them,
Okay.
but a good amount of them. Yeah,
Wow.
not
Was it
all of
hard to
them.
produce your own voice?
At first it was just really frustrating. I
Okay.
was just like, I suck. Was basically the sentiment. I was just like, I'm so bad at this, and not at producing, just at like singing. Because imagine like having to listen to your own voice, like
Oh yeah, hear it
say the
back.
same word, like the same actual phrase 30 times.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think like you learn more and more how to be objective, or like whatever objective means, but like more objective
Mm-hmm.
with that, and choosing like emotiveness, I don't know if that's a word, choosing like, yeah, the like more emotional takes, or like the
Mm-hmm.
more intimate takes over the ones where you just like sound really good, and
Right.
sometimes doing the opposite, and like understanding what's necessary for each song, which I think is like such a gift that like so many producers I know have, and that I didn't think I did, but I really, really enjoyed it. It taught me a lot about my own voice, is what I'll
Mm-hmm.
say. In the end of the day, it taught me a huge amount about like how I like to sing, what works, what doesn't. When like I was really the one digging in there, but it was also really frustrating, and I'd spend like 4 days recording vocals for one song, and it was certainly frustrating. But
Yeah.
there was something cool about like sitting on my bedroom floor and like like yelling into my microphone.
Right. Yeah, I could see where you're coming from though, like
Yeah.
getting too over analytical about it. Like,
Mm,
oh, I could have said this word a little bit better. Let me go
yeah.
back and try it again. Like
And I like
just
so
getting
am that person too.
yeah.
Like I really am that person, in every sense. I like hate everything that I do in the music. So it was really, it was challenging at first, for sure, to be like,
Yeah. let
okay,
it
Lila,
go.
like, come on, like it sounds good. But in the end, I'm really happy with it. And I also think it like you can hear it and you can like feel it in the music, that like there's a real sort of like honesty. And I always say this to people I work with, but it was really important for me for people to hear the songs and feel as though my voice is very physically close to them. And feel like the song is very physically close to them. I didn't want it to feel as if you're like standing in an arena and hearing it from afar. I wanted to feel like someone's like whispering into your ear when you listen to it. That sounds super cliche, but I think like there's an element of like me recording it in my bedroom that allows for that feeling and that sort of like electricity, even if there is like a little more white noise than there would normally be.
Yeah, I like the grit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like hearing the grit in some of the songs and making it sound a lot more real than
for sure
perfectly recorded in some $5,000 microphone or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it hard to juggle school with writing music? And I mean, especially at Yale, I'd assume
yes,
you've got a lot of work going on. Like, is it hard to kind of, navigate that?
Yes. Short answer is yes. It definitely is. I've been like in sort of like this like release mindset since I got here, being like, okay, we have songs that we need to put out, we have videos we need to put out. And so that's certainly been difficult to juggle, just because in that process, everything is so, we need this in 5 minutes, we need this in 10 minutes. And I'm like, I'm in class for the next 45 minutes. Or whatever, or I have an essay, or I have whatever. But I think my teachers have been really accommodating, is one thing I'll say. Been really, really lovely about like, the deadlines I have outside of, their essay deadlines and things. And
that's nice,
I also,
that they're able to work with you a bit.
Yeah, that for sure. And I also think that the like school provides a structure that like doing music as a career would never give me. And music, like making music outside of school, provides like such a deep level of like creative freedom that school like would never give me. So I think there is like a little bit of like a mental balance there that I think is interesting. For sure, I've been writing music since I've been here, like new music. But I also like, that's become a big form of like academic procrastination for me. is I'll be like, I'm doing something really, I'm like, this is productive, like I'm writing a new song and this is awesome, but then in the back of my mind I'm like, I have 10 pages due tomorrow and like I should do that too. But music will always come first for me, for sure. I think the more challenging element of that is balancing school and music and making sure that I have things going on in my life that I can write about in the music. Because if I'm just in the library all the time, I'm never gonna write
not much inspiration there.
No, I'm never ever gonna write good music. So it's been really important for me to like seek out, some like new experiences, new people, that allow me to write more, as well as doing school and working to like put music out too.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Lila. I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
the most recent song you put out was Crystal Ball. What can you tell me about that song real quick?
Oh my God. It is one of the most personal songs I've ever written. It's a very sort of like deep, emotive thing about anxiety and the way it plays out, and like the frustration that comes with feeling like the things that you hate that you do, you'll continue to do for the rest of your life. And yeah, but it's also really sort of a contemplative song and a quiet song, and there's a cello in it, and I love it, and I hope people listening love it as well. So yeah, amazing. That's what I can say about that.
Awesome. And do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Oh my God, I feel like I'm an aspiring artist. So,
well, you've done a lot in your career. So I wonder if you have any knowledge you could pass forward.
I would say the most important thing for me in making music that I really, really love, I think it's always like sounds silly to people when I say that I make like a lot of the music I've made I don't love, because they're like, you made it, why wouldn't you love it? Is to not think so much about the references, or not think so much about the music that you love, and rather, you know, think more about like the music that you naturally make. Like if you had never listened to music before, what would be the music that you would make? Or like what would be the sounds that you would gravitate towards, rather than being like Frank Ocean is the best artist of all time and like I just need to make music that's like that. I think I felt that way for a long time, and I feel like I've escaped it a little bit and feel so much freer in the music that I'm writing and the music that I'm making, and so much happier in it too, because it really feels like I have ownership over it, and like it's mine, and you know, that it wasn't relying so heavily on anything else. That isn't to say like don't listen to music, like absolutely listen to music, but you know, when you're in the studio, when you're like writing music, recording music, you know, that's yours for sure. So it's no, that's no one else's. Bringing it backward.